Welcome to The Rest is Giant Robots, a conversation through the careers of writer Simon Furman and artist Andrew Wildman. Recollections and revelations about the highs and the lows as creatives in comics, books, games, film and TV.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 26 of The Rest is Giant Robots. I'm Simon Furman, no credits listed.
Yeah, awards are plenty. And I'm Andrew Wildman, no awards.
Yes, if you're just joining us, you've missed our little me waving my Transformers Hall of
Oh.
Fame statuette. And Andrew looking very sort of sad.
Waving nothing, just waving. Yeah.
But yes, that's just proof positive. If you want to become a Prime Patreon member, you'll get all sorts of extra stuff before we get going. So anyway, here we are, episode 26. We're going to pick up more or less where we left off in episode 24, because obviously last time was our chat with Ian Rimmer, which was rather wonderful. And yeah, we're going to carry on talking about Regeneration 1, which we actually barely scraped the surface of.
How far did we get? I can't remember how far we got with that.
Really
We talked about how it started, didn't we?
And really up to maybe the first issue coming out and the signing we did at Orbital for 80.5.
Yeah.
But I don't think we got much further than that because there was a lot of backstory to the whole thing before we even got rolling on the 20-something issues that followed.
Yeah. A lot of issues.
And, just to recap, we were saying last time, or rather on 24, that Regeneration 1 started out as something like a 5 or 6 issue pitch to IDW to wrap up loose ends from the original run of 80 Marvel comics, because we'd had to rush it a bit at the end, and there was lots of stuff that we could pick up on and finish off properly or just expand upon. But then all of a sudden it turned from 5 or 6 issues into 20 issues.
It's like the original iteration, isn't it? 4-issue limited series, and then it kind of went on and on.
Yeah, so
similar thing.
And that was surprising and welcome, but also daunting in as much as I didn't really have enough story for 20 issues.
So when it was going to be like a 4 or 5 issue pitch, so you'd kind of got it into your mind where you were going to go with that, and also because the original Marvel book was kind of rushed to an end. So how much of what you had decided would be in those 4 or 5 issues was actually picking up from incomplete stuff that you originally had wanted to do, and then when you were given 20 issues of Regen, so you did have more room, did you actually pick up on any of the stuff from the Marvel days which hadn't been done, or did you just think of new stuff?
So a bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's elements, and again, for those who've seen the bonus materials we put up, you can see that there are the main sort of pillars, if you like, of Regeneration 1 in that original pitch. But naturally, it meant I could carry on and pick up on more storylines from the original, get into greater depth on the main pillars of the story, and give those more room to breathe. So sort of say Grimlock's story, trying to get back the ability to transform again, and being at odds with his fellow Dinobots because of the Nucleon storyline, that could then become a story arc on its own, as opposed to just a parallel storyline in the 5 or 6 issues. So the second arc, which was 86 to 90, is very much the Grimlock story. So I could start to do that. I could start to address the first arc would be the wrap up of what happened on Earth after we left the story because we never really saw what happened to Earth. We
Mm.
just knew that the Ark crash landed with Galvatron and Megatron and Ratchet inside it, and then Galvatron fights Fortress Maximus.
Yeah.
Let's start again. Yes, Fortress Maximus,
Yeah.
and then Galvatron plunges into the ice. But we don't, so that was all we'd left it as, and we never got a chance to go back and say they lived happily ever after or didn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that very much became the first story arc. And then Grimlock's quest became the second story arc. And
Mm.
then the Hot Rod Rodimus Prime story became somewhat the third arc. And then actually, the fourth arc, the whole reveal of the sort of true enemy, if you like, was a complete extra twist that got thrown into the mix, and the inclusion of the Generation 2 elements like G-Axis and, the interconnected network of Cybertrons, that all got layered in to create
Mm.
that extra story.
And did that become necessary because of what had happened in the intervening years from the Marvel book? Because there were all those different iterations within that time, weren't they?
Yeah, there were. And I think Generation 2 was just, well, if you take Generation 2 and look at it. And we had a request, didn't we, from one of our watchers, listeners, to get more
Mm.
into Generation 2 at some
Mm.
point. So
Mm.
we may well backtrack in a future episode and talk a bit more about Generation 2. But the thing with Generation 2 was it was actually a continuation of Generation 1. There's an issue that does a little bit of recap and catch up
Mm.
between the two. So
Okay.
it felt strange that now we were doing 81 to 100 as Regeneration 1. Well, where does Generation 2 fit into that? Does it?
Mm.
And the answer was, I don't think it does, but we should have those elements in the story we're telling.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. I might go back and read it all.
Yeah, I mean, I
This
think it's
sounds
worth.
good.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, I one of the extras for our Prime customers this time will be every time an issue or before an issue of Regeneration 1 came out, on my WordPress blog, I would do what I called a script wrap. And
Mm.
it was basically just, I've finished this. This is the next issue you've got to look forward to. Here's some non-spoilery bits of context and background for that issue. And I've
Mm.
assembled all of those into an 81 through to 100 document that Prime customers can have a look at
Yeah.
after this.
Why did you stop doing your blog? Was it just because you came into on social media at that point?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
at that point, my blog runs up to 2017.
Mm.
And I think by that point, I was just, it was Facebook and Twitter as was,
Mm.
and I think the blog became redundant on top of those two things.
Yeah. Yeah. It is an
Blogs,
interesting choice, isn't it? Some people prefer, but I can remember looking at all that stuff, way back, and them say the basic thinking was a blog slash newsletter is the best way because you are directly engaged with the people that are reading it, like they are the interested people,
mm,
whereas social media, you just like screaming into the abyss.
yeah. I mean, I did get quite nostalgic looking back at it because it is far more chatty than social media tends to
Mm.
be. Social media tends to be bang, that's the headline, and a couple of sentences to explain it.
Mm.
But the blog is far more, it's like a diary almost of the time for
Mm.
me.
Mm.
And I used to do little post convention uh roundups of the weekend. So,
Mm.
you'd get Auto Assembly 2013 and day by day breakdown of what happened.
Yeah.
And I do miss that a bit. It was nice just to revisit it and go, oh yeah, wow, I remember that. Oh yes, and those guests were there at that time. Like one of the auto assemblies, Jeff Anderson came along to as a guest, and he didn't come along to many conventions at the
Mm,
time, so that was really great to catch up with him.
mm, yeah. I mean, I guess you could. You've still got the blog, have you? Are you
Hmm,
still
it's still
switch
there,
it
yeah.
back on? Yeah.
I suppose you can, yeah.
It's
I
just
mean,
more
I
work,
don't.
though, isn't it?
It's something else to maintain. So yeah, I'll have to think about that. But it is, it is more than social media, a blog, definitely.
Yeah, 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 of course. And what sort of numbers did you have? You don't have to say that. That's fine. I'm
I
sure.
actually don't know.
No.
If they probably were wonderful, but I had a feeling there was. I mean, I got used to get a lot of comments,
Hmm.
a lot of feedback, and that was the other thing. There was much more feedback on the blog than there is on social media.
Hmm.
There were questions. I often used to invite people to come back in with comments and opinions and everything else.
Hmm.
So it was more useful, I think, than social media and more interactive.
Hmm. I guess smartphones were around then, but people didn't probably use them quite as much as they do now. Everything's done on your phone. Like even writing a blog and reading it, on a phone.
Yeah.
Social
I
media is
mean, I'm
very definitely geared up for that, isn't it? Just sound bites, scrolling through stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that, I didn't have a camera phone back in 2012, 2013. So, any images from conventions and whatever were reliant on my camera or people with cameras and sharing their,
Yeah.
it sounds archaic, but I actually miss it a lot, and
Yeah.
I
Everything was
miss
a
the.
bit more intentional back in the day. You had to
Mm,
actually do stuff rather than we almost do it in sleepwalking, doing it now, don't we? Just sort of
yeah,
snapping away and posting something and blah, whatever. But hey,
yeah,
has its advantages.
it
Anyway, we're
does.
supposed to be talking about
We
regeneration.
are, yes, but how often do we stay on track?
Yeah, not
But
really.
yes, Regeneration 1. So yes, suddenly we had 20 issues worth of story. And, being the way comics are produced then and now, it had to fall into trade paperback sized chunks.
Mm,
So
mm,
each one would be 5 issues, or so we thought, giving us our 20 issues. And that was nice because it gave structure to it. It was like, right, that's that story arc. Then we can shift the focus somewhere else, but keep the other plot lines bubbling along in the background.
yeah, yeah,
And that was nice. And obviously, we had the gang back together again, which was really nice.
yeah.
You know, and we had some nice variant covers. These days, it's funny. I notice the new Skybound series, issue 1, I think is something like has gone over 20 variant covers. They keep bringing out another variant for it. And, much as I don't mind variants, but,
Well, yeah,
sometimes it's just, wow, that's a lot of variant covers to store somewhere. But we kept it to 3, didn't
mm,
we? We had your cover A,
yeah,
we had Guido Guidi,
mm,
and that's kind of going to come into this in a little bit, doing the cover Bs,
mm.
and Jeff Senior doing the RI or retailer incentive covers.
Right, yeah.
And
Was that
everybody,
set from the start? And
right,
did
right from the start.
all the way through?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and that was nice because it gave us 3 different, quite distinct art styles.
Hmm.
And, the covers could be quite different as well. With Jeff's, I tended to make them, what's the action element in this story? Just give him something, big and dramatic to do. And yours were the more, this is what's happening in the issue covers.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's because I do like covers to reflect the story you're going to find inside.
Yeah. Rather than just a pin-up kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Guido's were slightly more, I suppose, left field of the story, but a little more, sometimes they were quiet moments.
Mm-hmm.
If you take issue 85, your cover is that very iconic one of Optimus Prime with a great slab of tarmac above his head, about to bring it down on Megatron.
Hmm.
And that was the drama of the issue. But then if you look at Guido's cover to that issue, it's Prime with his back to us
Yeah.
carrying away the sort of the slumped body of Megatron.
Yeah. It's
So
nice.
you got
I like that cover. It's a really good one that you did.
mm,
Yeah.
and so it was nice to be able to think, yeah, okay, fine, we can do the more, I don't know how to describe it, not esoteric, but slightly quieter moment covers for Guido.
Yeah.
And yours were the more story content. Jeff's were just wham bam, really.
What was the Jeff one for 85?
Oh, grief. You know what? I'm not sure off the top of my head. I will find out and we will put it up somewhere. But you know what? I can't think.
That's
I can,
interesting. Yeah, we'll have to have a look.
I
We'll
can
put it
think
up in
of,
the notes.
yeah, I can think of various Jeff ones. And, my favorite Jeff one is just, um, I mean, there's lots of good ones, covers throughout from all the
Hmm.
artists, but the Jeff one I really remember is there's one of the Pretender Beasts, Snarler, I think it is, being hit by Huffer. And all I said was, Huffer, the Pretender Beast, which is a sort of warthoggy thing, is charging towards Huffer.
Hmm.
And before it can reach Huffer, Huffer hits on the top of the nose with a sort of sledgehammer blow. Because the whole thing with Huffer is, even though he's little, he's very strong.
Yeah.
And the sort of the warthog thing is banged against the floor. Jeff's just got that so bang on. It really was. And it kind of looked funny as well. There was a sort of cartoonish element to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I knew that there were going to be variant covers when we started it. And then when they came through, I remember being quite slightly disappointed that Jeff was doing a variant cover because I've always felt slight imposter syndrome because Jeff was on the book way back when. So I was thinking, oh, here we go. You know, everybody's going to see these covers and say, oh, the book would be so much better if Jeff Senior was drawing it.
I don't think anybody said that. And anyway, even given a straight choice, you were the artist to continue where we left off. It was as simple as
I guess so.
that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that I think it would have looked very strange, Regeneration 1, if Jeff had drawn it from the outset. And,
Mm.
it's nice, and we'll get onto this in a bit, that Jeff did get to draw some of issue 100 and
Yeah.
part of issue 0.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
got
Definitely.
Jeff
No, it's
on
a
some
significant part
interiors.
of it. I think it was really good that everybody did have all those covers, and like you say, a different take on it. It's not like a slight variation on what the cover is. It's very very Jeff. They were great.
Yeah,
Some of them they were so good.
yes. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so that was nice. And the other thing nice about Regeneration 1, for me at least, was it kept us relevant. And that's a thing we run up against
Mm,
with Transformers, and especially when you're going to a Transformers convention, it's good to be on a monthly happening book.
mm.
And it does give you that relevance and that sense of, oh, I'm not just relying on former glories here.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, I can remember before Regen going to was it? I don't even know. I think it was TF Nation then. Was it Auto Assembly?
Auto
Going,
assembly,
going
yeah.
to Auto Assembly, and obviously we'd been there a lot, but then there was all the IDW stuff going on. And I can remember us doing a panel on the stage, and there was a lot of people there, and it was a Q&A, and it was all like old stuff,
Mm.
that we were talking about. Um, and then after us, I think Nick Roche and John
James
James
Roberts.
Roberts were doing a panel, and the audience kind of participation and reaction to them was like far more enthusiastic than it was for us. And I was just thinking, yeah, we're done, really, aren't we? It's like it's the
Uh,
new blood. I mean, God bless them, kind of run with that. So when Regeneration 1 came out, it was nice to feel like we were kind of part of what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a
It,
big
it
thing for Regeneration 1 to
mm,
happen. I mean, to tell that story, because it is the definitive Transformer story. I mean, everything else is just a version.
yeah. And, in common with everything, we were getting feedback all the time via, the blog, social media, you know, comments on other websites. So, you know, it was that instant feedback on, if we did something wrong, we'd know about it. If we did something right, it
Yeah.
was a weird way, so unlike the original Marvel comic, where we were largely operating in a vacuum.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what it was like to be a comics creative back in the day, wasn't it? That's why
Yeah.
everybody used to go to the very few conventions we had in the UK and just go completely mental.
Yeah. And, of course, Regeneration 1 went from, uh, I think it was July 2012 to March 2014. So it was a nice, significant, as you say, chunk of work and
Mm.
time on a live Transformers book.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. And it was interesting that it came when it did, like we were saying about working at Platinum Studios on Matt Hatter. I was kind of coming to the end of my tenure on that. So it fitted in perfectly for me, and it was really nice to just get back into my own little studio and just draw comics.
Mm. Yeah, and of course I carried on working on Mad Hatter season 3 and then 4 while Regeneration 1 was going on. So I was often uh, going in and out of Pinewood still,
Mm,
uh, doing my stint on that. So it was, when I looked at my blog, I thought, oh, I wasn't doing much else at the time. Was I just working on Regeneration 1? And then, of course, I realized that Matt Hatter was still a very big presence in my day-to-day workload.
yeah, yeah. I was actually something I went when I saw your background, something I made a note of before we came on air, and I just seen your background there.
Mm,
We did an auction, didn't we, for Bill Mantlo
yes, we did.
with that cover, which I was going back through emails and I saw some emails back and two, because the an issue, a copy of that issue was getting sent around as many people as we could get in touch with. I should have
Mm,
made a note of the names on it, but and then it was going to end up at was it? It was probably LFCC then back at that
yeah,
time,
yes, I think it
because I
was.
think Bob was there, wasn't he? Bob Budiansky was there
Yeah.
that year, and
There was London Super Comic Con as well. I can't remember which one it was, but
yeah, I
yes,
can't
you're
remember which one.
right. It was one of those. And yeah, I'd forgotten that myself that we did that. Yes, because poor Bill Mantlo well, he was injured, wasn't he? Yeah, terribly.
It was a hit and run, I think, wasn't
Hit
it?
and run, yeah. And it left him, in need of, critical round the clock care. So,
Y- Yeah,
yeah, it was a very worthy cause.
yeah, yeah. It just seemed like such a nice thing to do, and obviously everybody was up for it. I can't remember how much the comic went for in the end, but the signatures we got on that were amazing.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think that's where the comics biz really is good because
Yeah, definitely.
everybody does tend to pull together at those points.
Mm, yeah, yeah. It was nice to do that. Nice to kind of give back really, for poor old Bill.
Absolutely.
Mm,
So, yeah, Regeneration 1, I mean, the first two arcs ticked along very smoothly, I thought. I can't remember any sort of hiccups. I think there weren't scheduling problems.
no,
The team was working well together. JP worked out brilliantly on colors
yeah.
and it just, those first two arcs just felt like clockwork. And I think it's only when we get to the third arc that the first, well, this wasn't even a problem really, but it was just you had to drop out of the penciling, didn't you?
Hmm. I do remember beginning to feel a bit jaded with it, which is odd, really, because it was such a privilege to be able to be doing it, after all
Mm,
those years. But I do remember feeling a bit jaded anyway. But I think what kind of actually happened to make me then have to step away from the book, which in a way I really didn't want to. I wanted to do it
Mm.
all to be a complete work. But somebody, so Regeneration One, kind of, as we said last time that we were talking about it, it kind of came together as a conversation with IDW, etc., etc., while I was working at Pinewood on Mad Hatter. While I was at Pinewood, there was somebody who came in for a fairly short period of time. I've mentioned this before, called Andrea Tran. Um, and I got on really well with him. He came in as a art director, I think, on Mad Hatter for a brief period of time, and then moved on because it didn't really work for him. But then I got a communication from him some time later, and he'd gone back to work for Collingwood, or Collingwood O'Hare as they were called, who was um, a British animation company that had done amazing work, like multi-award winning animation company, and they needed somebody to come and be concept artist on a preschool kids show that they were working on.
Mhm.
So I thought, okay, I'll go and have a look. I don't know about that. But it, so I started doing some work on that, but then the demands on that meant that I was finding less and less time to be able to do regen, and I just I had to choose between one or the other. And I think for me, because comics was something that with Regen had just cropped up and was great, but that my career was,
Mm.
was TV and all that kind of stuff, really. So it's like, no, I can't let the Collingwood gig go. There was a preschool show called Rough Rough Tweet and Dave. I'll put a link into some YouTube footage of that so people can see what it actually was that dragged me away from Regen.
Yes, yeah, quite a change
Um,
of pace, wasn't it?
Massively, yeah. But I loved it, and they Collingwoods were an amazing company to work for. Very small company, doing all the pre-production on that show, but they were wonderful, wonderful, and it was a really nice show to work on. So yeah, I had to step away, kind of
Mm.
reluctantly in a way, but I had to kind of future-proof myself really and get some good credits in TV.
And
Um,
and it was a strange situation because it was exactly who can we get to replace you. Jeff didn't feel. I think Jeff would have jarred going from you to
mm,
Jeff for a chunk of it, and we always wanted you to come back for issue 100. I think we had those discussions at the time that you would
mm,
draw all or part of issue 100,
yeah,
and it just felt Jeff, obviously, much as I love Jeff's art, and also Jeff had his own advertising agency at the
yeah,
time, and I'm not sure could have committed to a monthly comic book.
no, no,
So it left us in a bit of a quandary. And then I can't remember whether it was me or uh, I guess it would have been Andy Schmidt as the editor who suggested Guido as the interior artist.
mm,
And I thought, well, okay, that could work. It's not too big a shift.
mm,
And Guido's been doing the variant covers, so he's sort of familiar with the with what we're doing. And
mm,
it, it, it's a funny thing. We didn't road test him. We didn't say do a sample. I think we just gave him issue 93, I think it was his first one. And
right,
maybe we said, try and make it not too much of a jar between, Andrew's work and your work. And Guido's a
mm,
strange artist. He's got his very own, his style's very much his own, but he seems to be able to morph it into other artist styles a little bit. It still looks like Guido, but he seemed to sort of take on what you'd been doing and just sort of do his version of it, if you like.
mm,
I mean, a
mm,
bit like the cover behind me that sadly our audio listeners can't see. It's Guido's variant to issue 100, and it's a recreation of the Bill Sinkovich issue 1 cover.
yeah,
And it's again, he's just a chameleon artist who can turn his hand to, it seems, almost adapting his style.
yeah,
And of course we still had Basker's inking here.
yeah, which is going to make, well, as we know, Baskers will save it.
Yeah, well, and so between the two, It
Yeah.
really isn't a big hiccup. You can look at the third trade paperback and go from issue 92 to 93 without a big kind of what's happened here, because it
Mm,
flows nice and smoothly from there.
mm. I guess
Uh,
when two-thirds of the art team are the same, it's gonna.
yes.
And it's because Stephen has a very Stephen style. So yeah, I mean, some people probably wouldn't even notice if they weren't Transformers fans will notice, the
Yes.
people reading, but generally comics, comics readers probably wouldn't
Hmm.
just because it kind of looks the same.
But strangely, what could have been a bump in the road wasn't too bad at all. It just sort of ticked along, and then very quickly Guido, I mean, he's just a very sort of reliable artist. You
Mm,
can, almost without a doubt, you're going to get that quality page in, panel out.
mm,
So, it was great, and it meant that we could sort of see things through to 100 and then get you back on board.
mm. Yeah, and it was nice to come back and do some pages on issue 100 because it was very much for me the the Hot Rod Rodimus thing. It was nice to get
Mm.
back in there and do a nice some nice pictures of, of
Yeah.
Rodimus
And
just to
and you
kind
carried
of
on
continue
doing the
that.
cover A's, didn't you? So again, we had
Yeah,
that continuity.
yeah, yeah. It's nice to do that. Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't only Rough that that was kind of blocking up my schedule either. It was because I've been doing work on Doctor Who on Matt Smith's final season of Doctor Who.
Mm.
Um, and the Christmas special, because it was around about the 50th. Well, it was the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who, so there was a lot of Doctor Who stuff going on.
Yeah.
And then there was a Christmas special, The Time of the Doctor, which was one of the 50th. They did the Time of the Doctor, the Day of the Doctor, the
Yeah.
whatever other things they did. So I did the Time of the Doctor, and I was looking back through some emails around that as well, and I suddenly realised an interesting thing. So something that I've probably spoken about it on the podcast. I can't remember, but something around my tenure on Doctor Who was that when they were filming the Time of the Doctor, and the Doctor and Clara were in the TARDIS, and the Doctor was doing he was really old. He'd kind of aged, and he was doing his all of time and space monologue in the TARDIS. And I was there that day for a couple of the scenes that were being filmed.
Mm.
And I was kind of like herded into the TARDIS for when they were shooting that. So there was me
Okay.
and a couple of other people who said, "Yeah, go in quick, quick, because we're going to start filming anyway. Go in, stand with your back as tight to that back wall over there, so that you're out of shot."
Mm.
So I was in the TARDIS while they were filming all of that.
Wow.
But also, one of the other people that was in there was the script editor of Doctor Who season 7, and I had half a memory of who it was, and I looked it up, and that script editor was Derek Ritchie. Now, Derek Ritchie's name came up because he ended up then moving on from being a script editor to being a producer, and he was producer on Luther season 5, which
Ah.
I storyboarded. And Derek Ritchie is also a massive Transformers fan, so he very often comes to TF Nation.
All right.
So
Oh,
it's funny
brilliant.
how things just cross over all over the place.
Yeah,
And I worked with him
absolutely.
on the Capture as well because he was producer on the Capture. So yeah, so strange time looking back to
Mm.
see all those kind of strange things that now were just things happening at the time, but now it's like, oh my god, I've worked with them so much since.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the other little sort of wrinkle we had to navigate about the same time that Guido was coming on board was uh, a while before I pitched the idea of an annual, that a Regeneration One annual that
right.
would sort of expand upon some of the other story elements, and something we could get other artists involved with.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
was the first talk of Jeff doing some, and I pitched this idea to Andy, and he wasn't against it, but I don't think it fitted their plans to do an annual. And then suddenly what happened was our 100th issue, they wanted to hit in the same month as Larry Hammer's G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero.
Okay.
And so, but we were a month out on that thing. It was so the 200th issue of A Real American Hero was a month further on from our 100th issue. And that was where the idea came to turn the annual pitch into an issue zero and slot it in between issues 94 and 95.
Okay.
And
Good.
you know, I was fine. I was happy to do that. And it gave us more room to explore these little tangent stories that were nevertheless important to the main storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just hit on the idea of, well, let's get the kind of the right artist for each era of story we've got in there. So we
Mm.
got Jose Delbo back to
Brilliant.
draw, a one themed around the Car Wash of Doom storyline. And we got Jeff in to do one based around the sort of Matrix creature he'd drawn before. And Jeff Anderson did the flashback to Cybertron episode that introduced Jaxus. And
Mm.
and and then Nick Roach came in to draw the movie tie-in one, the animated movie tie-in episode. So it was
Mm.
really great fun, and I think this was where JP excelled himself by
Yeah, he
doing a
did.
different coloring style for each of the eras, if you like. I mean, it was quite
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah,
You know,
nice, nice, and just nice to see those people kind of having a hand in it, especially
yeah,
Jeff
I mean, it
Anderson. I
was
mean, it's
wonderful. And I think the funny story from this is Jose Delbo completely surprised the IDW editorial office by sending them the artwork. Everyone else was doing it digitally and scanning it and sending it, but a package of, I think it's 5 or 6 pages of actual artwork turned up in the offices of IDW,
nice.
and they were like,
Yeah,
"What's this? What do
yeah.
we
What do we
do
do
with
with this?
this?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody know what to do with original artwork? It's a lost art.
Yeah. And I think it was on proper old school Bristol board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100% rag Bristol board.
And yeah, it was nice to see Jeff do his first Transformer strip work for ages
Yeah, yeah.
on that issue. And of course, we got him back in to help out on issue 100, which was superb because it was a double-sized issue.
Hmm. Yeah, far too much for me.
Yeah. And you were busy as well.
Yeah, I
So
was.
I seem to remember you were slightly, even though obviously you wanted to do it, you were having to juggle that with the other work that was going on.
Yeah, yeah, and also I was also doing Horizon as well. God only knows when I fitted that in.
Yes.
But I'd set myself a deadline with that, which I desperately wanted to keep up, which was
Mm.
easier with Horizon. It was my own project, but it was like I want to do at least like half a day a week, you know,
Hmm.
just slot that in and just make that regular because it's so easy to not bother. But yeah,
Yeah.
that
Interestingly, on my blog, there's the first mention of me doing something new with Jeff.
okay.
So that would be To the Death,
Yeah,
but it's the first sort of actual, yeah, we're working on something together. There were quite a few stages after that, but yeah, so obviously, again, around that time, I was developing To the Death with Jeff.
yeah. And it's quite a while ago, isn't it? You know, think about all
Well, yeah,
these things.
2014. I mean, it all finished early 2014. So, that is 11 years ago now, which
Yeah.
sounds crazy
Wow. We've
considering
become irrelevant again.
Yeah, I know. And the other nice little footnote to Regeneration 1 was that we started it with a signing at Orbital and we finished it with a signing at Orbital
Yeah, okay.
Comics in London. So yeah, issue 100, we got the team together again and did us another signing
Did
at
another
Orbital,
signing.
which I'd forgotten about.
Yeah. I'd forgotten and I can't remember it either. I remember doing a signing there, but I'm now wondering whether it was the first one or the second one. Well, I did them both, I guess, but I
Yeah,
can
I think you did,
I
but
think
yeah,
they've
we
all meshed into one memory.
but yeah, we did too. So that was a nice sort of little bookend to the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, a
And
good project that I think stands the test of time. And it is, as I
yeah,
said, it is the definitive Transformers story because it was started by the people that started it,
yeah,
Jim and Bob.
Bill Mantlo amongst them, you know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
so yeah, no, it was great, and it was a very satisfying thing to have done, and then slightly like, what's next, I wonder.
Yeah. What was next?
Oh, well, we'll tell you in a future podcast. We might default to one of our movie catch ups next podcast, but we'll
Yeah, that'd be
see.
good. I'm going to. not- Oh, is it tonight or is it tomorrow night? I think it's tonight. I'm going to go and see Jurassic Park or
Oh,
Jurassic
okay.
World or whatever it's called.
Yeah, yeah. I think we'll have a few to catch up with. I've seen Superman, and we've both seen 28 Years Later,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Thunderbolts, and a few others.
yeah. I haven't seen Thunderbolts. I'm going to see Superman next week.
Yeah, so yeah, we can have a little
Amazing.
maybe a movie sidestep before we push on with the main stuff. But
Mm.
there were two little other things that bubbled up from my blog before we finish.
Oh yeah.
One was in 2012, there was yet another poll for Death's Head, you know, a vote thing. And it wasn't the comic, it was which Marvel figure should get a Hero Clicks, uh,
Oh yeah.
which Marvel character get a Hero Clicks figure.
Yeah.
And again, there was one that Death's Head was one of the candidates. So
Oh wow.
I was trying to chivvy everybody up to get them to vote. And sure enough, we got a little Death's Head Hero Clicks figure out of that, which was
Fantastic.
grand.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'd forgotten was just talking, we broke mentioned Matt Hatter briefly. There was very briefly a Matt Hatter comic.
Okay.
Titan and Platinum Films, Titan Comics magazines and Platinum Films got together
Mm.
and did a one shot. They had a title called Totally, which could be anything, totally something else, totally this.
Mm.
And this one was totally Matt Hatter Chronicles.
Okay.
And it with a view uh, to it being an ongoing series.
All right.
And obviously, the ongoing series didn't happen, but
No.
that one shot, I would imagine, I think I've got a copy somewhere, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's anything that became very collectible, if you like. But I did do the comic strip for that, and Zach Simmons Hearn,
Oh
who
yes,
was one of the concept artists on the show,
he was.
did the comic artwork on that, and he
Yeah.
went on and he now works on for the Phoenix.
He does, yeah. He's the designer at the Phoenix. Because when I was at Platinum and working on Matt Hatter, and it was the workload was too much for just me to do the concept because I'd kind of upgraded to production designer, so we needed somebody, and I interviewed a few people, and Zach was one that turned up, and he's great. His work was good, but he's just such a good-natured person,
Oh,
so easy to work with.
yes.
So it's like we got to have this guy. He's going to fit right in, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then he went on to work for the Phoenix, and now he's the designer there. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But
good old
yeah.
Zach.
But anyway, yes, so that was just my other there were other things going on and a ton of conventions. Absolutely littered with conventions that 2012 to 2014 was. So many. There was
Any
even
of note?
well, only in as much as I did a small comic con. I guess it was only a one day thing in Melksham,
Oh yeah,
which is a town in Wiltshire,
mm,
which is now only just up the road from me.
yeah,
But of course, I have no memory of that. And if anybody out there has memories or photographs from that Melksham Comic Con, it would have been in 2013.
yeah,
Do get in touch with us because I'd love to just have some kind of, you know, concept of, I just have no memory of whether it was in a hall, a,
yeah.
of what kind of venue it was, anything.
Well, it's probably
Any,
because I did a Milksham Comic Con, obviously not the same year, but I did
no.
it one year.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very small, very small
Yes.
place. But it for some reason, small as it is, it's a much loved little comic convention. I don't know if they still do it, but just
Mm,
the vibe there was just wonderful, really cool.
yeah. Anyway, yes, if anybody does have any sort of memories of the convention or the time I was there, do let us know because my
Yeah.
memory, hopeless. And also, I would say I do a lot of conventions, and it's hard always. Sometimes it's hard to pin down
Yeah.
exactly where you were when.
Was JP there? Because he didn't live that all that far. He wouldn't have lived all that far from there,
No,
and he
it's
was.
possible.
Yeah, he was
I,
there the
I
year I
I
did
will go back to my blog entry and read what there was on it, but I just saw it in passing and thought, oh, Milksham, that's just up the road now.
it. Yeah. Well,
And
if they still do it, you'll have to go.
yeah, absolutely. Anyway, it's been a pleasure as always.
Mm.
And that sort of brings us up to early 2014, but still a lot of stuff to get through.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh, there was one thing that I didn't mention, which has always tickled me, and I'll see if I can find a picture of it and put it in the
Mm,
notes. On, I don't know which issue it was. It was the one where they go to a place in America called Little America. The actual town is called something
yes.
like that. And I needed to know what this. You were sort of specific that that's where the action was going to take place, and
Mm.
I did. I went to Google Street View just to because it's always a good way for looking at locations, thinking what does this town actually look like? This one horse town, you know.
Mm.
Um, and so I was on Google Street View, just like going down the road, so I could get a sense of location and base everything I was drawing on that. And there, in a car park, was the truck that Optimus Prime turns into. That actual, whatever that model is, there it was.
Ah,
I thought, oh my God,
brilliant.
he's actually there.
And you thought it was just a random
I thought you made all
suggestion.
this stuff up. I didn't know it all actually happened.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, see if you've still got whatever. If did you take a sort of screen grab of it
I
then,
did a
or
screen grab. Yeah, I've probably got it somewhere. I mean, Street View gets updated, so I don't know whether he's still parked there, but I might go and have a look.
fantastic. Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, it probably would have been around issue 83 or 84, I'm guessing.
yeah, yeah. It was after there was all the stuff kicking off at the in Washington, wasn't it?
Yes.
White House. Yeah.
Good.
Good. All right.
Grand. Well, look, pleasure as always, and thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. See
Hear
you in a
you.
couple of weeks. Yeah. All right, Simon. Thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Rest is Giant Robots. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider subscribing for more and maybe share with like-minded friends. This has been a Wildfur production.